For decades, the US and Russia have raced against one another to build powerful missiles capable of entering Earth's orbit and crossing oceans to hit one another. More recently, China has jumped into that missile race through the modernization of its military. No missiles have flown yet. However, the US always needs to do whatever it can to protect itself against the aerial threat Russia and China present. And it's doing just that right now. In a shock announcement, US President Donald Trump says that the US will soon get a Golden Dome shield that will make the country untouchable. Russia and China are stunned. Trump unleashing the Golden Dome may have just made the combined long-range threat irrelevant. On May 20, Trump delivered the news that the US will officially start working on a new Golden Dome air defense system designed to protect the entire country against a range of aerial threats. According to Trump, the new system will be operational in less than 3 years and will achieve a success rate close to 100%. The Golden Dome concept is ambitious and expensive. However, it isn't as surprising as some would make out. The idea of protecting America's skies with a system like this has always been on Trump's mind. Just days after regaining the office of president in January, Trump signed an executive order to build the Iron Dome for America, a new system to counter the next generation aerial threats America's enemies can use against it. The May 20 announcement simply reveals that the system is far closer to being a reality than anybody expected.
Once fully constructed, the Golden Dome will be capable of intercepting missiles even if they are launched from other sides of the world and even if they are launched from space. And we will have the best system ever.
So, the US plan is clear. Make itself immune to long-range missile threats that Russia and China present. That leads to two questions. Why now? And what's known so far? Starting with the second question, Space Force General Michael Gutlein, who is the Vice Chief of Space Operations, delivers the most succinct answer. Gutlein is the man Trump has assigned to make the Golden Dome a reality, and he had this to say about the project.
Our adversaries have been quickly modernizing their nuclear forces, building out ballistic missiles capable of hosting multiple warheads, building out hypersonic missiles capable of attacking the United States within an hour and traveling at 6,000 miles an hour, building cruise missiles that can navigate around our radar and our defenses, and building submarines that can sneak up on our shores, and worse yet, building space weapons.
Translation: Russia and China are getting stronger, and what the US has right now isn't enough to counter that strength. Gutlein isn't wrong. Just a couple of weeks ago, China was hinting that it had hypersonic missiles capable of traveling at speeds of up to Mach 20. Those missiles may even be launchable from satellites, ground-based launchers, and other platforms, giving China plenty of options for attacking the US. Russia is also deep into the hypersonic game. National Defense University says that it's currently developing at least 3 hypersonic weapons that are either already operational or are quickly approaching operational status. Russia has been working on these systems since at least 2018, when Russian President Vladimir Putin first announced them, and they, along with the Chinese missiles, represent a clear threat to the US. A threat that the US is no longer going to tolerate.
It is time that we change that equation and start doubling down on the protection of the homeland.
And in this case, Trump appears to have made a good choice to head the project. The Guardian says that Gutlein is a 4-star general who is widely considered within the Pentagon as a competent and deeply experienced operator. In particular, he's an expert in the development and procurement of missile defense systems, which is precisely the knowledge needed to make the Golden Dome a reality. With the Golden Dome, the US is communicating a clear message to Russia and China. You may be developing weapons capable of reaching the US at speeds never before seen, but if you ever fire them, the US will have a system in place to stop those missiles in their tracks. Your attacking threat will be neutralized by our defenses, leaving you open to counterattacks. At least, that seems to be the main goal behind the development of the Golden Dome. But how will that goal be turned into a reality? The first answer to that question is simple: money. A lot of money. Trump revealed that the Golden Dome will cost around $175 billion to make a reality over the next 3 years. For context, funding for US defense was capped at $895 billion for the 2025 financial year, meaning that the Golden Dome will cost around a fifth of America's annual military budget to build. The US won't be spending that money all at once. As the War Zone, or TWZ, reveals, Trump is aiming to get approval for the first tranche of funding, which is valued at around $25 billion, as part of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act he's trying to push through. That bill also contained sweeping reforms to taxation and immigration, suggesting that Trump is hoping that his reforms will be enough to sweeten the sour taste of the US being asked to spend so many billions on a new air defense system. But Golden Dome may end up costing a lot more than Trump suggests, says The Guardian. Though $175 billion is the figure provided for building the massive system, based on Trump having already settled on its architecture, the US also has to consider ongoing running costs. After all, an aerial defense system can't do much if it's not stocked up with the missiles and other weapons it needs to blow an enemy's missiles out of the skies. The final price tag for Golden Dome could balloon to $540 billion over the next 2 decades, claims the Congressional Budget Office, meaning it's going to place a financial burden on US defense spending for years to come. So, it's clear Golden Dome is going to cost a lot of money. But what's not known for certain yet is how it will work. The Guardian says that 3 proposed versions of the Golden Dome exist, and despite Trump's claims to have settled on the system's architecture, the US president hasn't yet chosen which of the 3 to use. Those 3 proposals are small, medium and large, the outlet says, with all 3 broadly claiming that the Golden Dome will combine ground-based missile interceptors with new high-tech systems being designed as a space-based form of defense. That space-based system is itself broken down into several categories. Initially, Trump had the choice between Moonshot Plus and Moonshot Plus Plus, though the names were later changed by US Secretary of Defense Peter Hegseth to Silver, Gold and Platinum tiers. Perhaps the Golden Dome is a hint that Trump has selected the middle of those 3 tiers for the space defense aspect of the new system. What's known for sure right now is that this space-based system will be the key to the Golden Dome project. It's also not the first time the US has tried to expand its space missile capabilities. The Golden Dome could be seen as an extension of former President Ronald Reagan's Strategic Defense Initiative. Dubbed Star Wars by the media and many of Reagan's critics, that system never came close to achieving its goals, says TWZ. However, it was also a system the US was trying to build with 1980s era technology. Over 4 decades later, the US is likely in a better position to make the space portion of the Golden Dome a reality. As for what that space-based aspect of the system will look like, it can be broken down into missiles and satellites. On March 20, TWZ reported on comments made by Chief of Space Operations General Chance Saltzman when he was speaking about the yet-to-be-announced Golden Dome. He said that the US needs to look toward building space interceptor missiles with a twist. It's not just that we want space-based interceptors, Saltzman said. We want them in the boost phase. We want them to achieve their effects as far from the homeland. So they've got to be fast, they've got to be accurate. A missile's boost phase is the first of 3 phases that propel the weapon towards its target. Typically, this first phase involves the use of at least 1 rocket engine to provide the propulsion the missile requires to get on the trajectory it needs to be on to head toward its target. The boost phase usually gives way to the mid-course phase, leading to the rocket engines being cut and the missile coasting to its intended destination. The warheads detach from the missile at this phase, eventually reaching the terminal phase, in which gravity pulls those warheads down toward their target. The US doesn't want to give Russian or Chinese missiles the chance to enter the latter 2 phases. By taking out missiles in their boost phase, Golden Dome ensures those missiles never get close to hitting the US. That's especially important given that many modern missiles carry multiple warheads. It's much better to destroy those warheads all at once before they're in Earth's orbit than it is to wait for them to be released from the missile, forcing the US to target them all separately. Shooting for the boost phase is also important from a practical perspective. When in this phase, a missile's rocket boosters emit massive plumes of hot gas, which makes the weapon easier to track for a US interceptor. Waiting until the warheads are released makes intercepting much more difficult. The challenge the US faces with interceptors that strike missiles in their boost phase is that this phase doesn't last long. The US is essentially committing to building space-based interceptors as part of the Golden Dome project that are capable of striking an enemy missile while it's still in that enemy's territory. I think there's a lot of technical challenges, Saltzman said when talking about these interceptors. I'm so impressed by the innovative spirit of the American space industry. I'm pretty convinced that we'll be able to technically solve these challenges. Trump will be counting on just that to make the space-based aspect of the Golden Dome a reality. He also knows that having interceptor missiles in space isn't enough. For this aspect of the Golden Dome to work properly, the US also needs to develop a new form of early warning system to track enemy missile launches, along with building a constellation of tracking satellites to allow its interceptors to hone in on those missiles. TWC says work is already underway on both, though that work is likely to accelerate now that Trump has set a 3-year deadline for the Golden Dome to be operational. The satellites also throw up an interesting wrinkle because they open the door for Elon Musk to get involved in the project. That's according to Reuters, which claimed on April 17 that Musk's company, SpaceX, was the frontrunner among a group of organizations that are trying to land the contract to build the satellites the Golden Dome needs. Reuters says that 6 people familiar with the Golden Dome project have all confirmed that SpaceX is currently working alongside a pair of partners to build key aspects of the Golden Dome, including its satellite constellation. Those partners include Palantir, which develops software, and a drone manufacturer named Anduril. SpaceX itself will likely handle the satellites, with the other 2 being responsible for the software the entire Golden Dome system uses and a portion of its ground-based aspect, respectively. The plan, according to Reuters, will see the trio of companies work together to build and launch between 400 and 1,000 new satellites into orbit, all of which will circle the globe constantly to track missile launches. A separate fleet of around 200 attack satellites, which the US could arm with lasers or its interceptor missiles that the Golden Dome can use to destroy enemy missiles, has also been proposed. Musk is playing coy about the situation, with the Pentagon claiming that his group has simply offered an option to the White House, though one of the sources Reuters spoke to says otherwise. That source claims that the acquisition process for the satellites is a departure from the usual process. There's an attitude that the national security and defense community has to be sensitive and deferential to Elon Musk because of his role in the government, the source added. Interestingly, there's also a suggestion that Musk is working on a subscription model for the satellites, which would mean the US pays for access to his technology rather than owning it outright. This doesn't yet indicate what the Golden Dome satellite setup will look like. Neither Trump nor Musk has confirmed SpaceX's involvement in the project, certainly not to the level that Reuters claims. However, it stands to reason that Musk may be heavily involved in the Golden Dome given his close ties to the US president. So that covers the space-based aspect of the Golden Dome. But earlier mentions of drone technology being incorporated into America's new defense system indicate that there's a ground-based portion of the project to consider. Specifically, TW says that surface sensors will be needed to detect threats that aren't spaceborne, such as incoming drones and cruise missiles. Existing and new sensors and effectors will be integrated into the system, according to statements made at today's presser, said TWC on May 20. The implication here is that the US is looking for ways to both integrate its existing aerial defense command and control architectures and emerging architectures into the Golden Dome. With the appropriate networking, that would allow the US to develop a layered system of defenses that perhaps combines what it already has with the new technology needed to get the Golden Dome up and running. Imagine a system that starts with space defense and then has multiple layers of ground defense, forcing an incoming projectile to essentially break through several barriers before reaching the US. And you have the idea. It's a concept that's somewhat similar to Israel's air defense system that combines the Arrow 2, Arrow 3, David Sling, and Iron Dome systems to create a multi-layered defense array. Golden Dome may do the same, only it will do it on a much larger scale. It's also known that the Golden Dome won't be a closed system. Instead, it will feature open architecture that allows the US to contract whoever it sees fit to build the system and make tweaks in the future. There will be no single vendor. That's important because it means the US isn't tied down to a specific company. When changes need to be made or new capabilities have to be added, the US can create a tendering process that allows it to select the best contractor for the job. TWC speculates that this open architecture will also allow for the faster integration of new features into Golden Dome because the US won't have to wait around for a sole vendor to be ready to get to work. Finally, there's one more aspect of the Golden Dome's capabilities to cover: the types of threats it will confront. Hypersonic missiles are the headline threat. with Gutlein reinforcing that fact when making his comments upon being made head of the project. There's no denying the importance of countering these missiles. Russia and China both have them, or are in the process of building them, and the US currently doesn't have much that it can use to counter missiles capable of travelling at 20 times the speed of sound. However, Golden Dome is meant to be all-encompassing. In other words, it's not simply a hypersonic missile killer. The Defense Intelligence Agency, or DIA, made that clear when it published an assessment document named Golden Dome for America: Current and Future Missile Threats to the US Homeland. Revealed about a week before Trump made his announcement, the document revealed that the Golden Dome is being designed to tackle several types of threats. Beyond hypersonic missiles, it'll also be capable of destroying intercontinental ballistic missiles, submarine-launched ballistic missiles, ground attack cruise missiles, and fractional orbital bombardment systems. The document also made mention of North Korea and Iran as potential threats that Golden Dome intends to counter. North Korea has run successful tests on ballistic missiles that can reach the US, says the DIA, and Iran has space launch vehicles from which it could conceivably launch a ballistic missile by 2035. Add Russia and China's more immediate threat to that picture, and the importance of the Golden Dome becomes even more apparent. The US needs the Golden Dome. If it isn't built, the homeland becomes vulnerable to these emerging threats. And it's not just the US that realizes this fact. Canada is so impressed by the Golden Dome that it's currently in talks with the United States to become part of this new missile defense program. That's according to both Trump and Canada's Prime Minister's Office, or PMO.
Canada has called us and they want to be a part of it. So we'll be talking to them. They want to have protection also. So as usual, we help Canada do the best we can.
A slight dig at Canada near the end of that statement aside, Trump seems to be implying that the Golden Dome will be a joint project between the US and Canada. A PMO spokesperson appeared to confirm this news in a statement to CTV News. The PMO says that Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, along with his ministers and their US counterparts, are currently talking. These discussions naturally include strengthening NORAD and related initiatives such as the Golden Dome, the spokesperson said. How involved Canada will be remains to be seen. Trump may call on the US neighbours to the north to partially fund the project, which would be a huge feather in his cap. Failing that, Canada may provide some technical expertise or perhaps even some of the weapons Golden Dome will use when it's up and running. Trump will likely be most interested in the former option. He can even point to Canada recently committing $6 billion to build an early warning radar system alongside Australia as evidence that the nation is capable of splashing some cash. It's not yet known for sure until more details about the Golden Dome are revealed. For now, Russia, China, and any other US enemy that focuses its efforts on building missiles capable of hitting the American homeland are shocked. With the Golden Dome, the US will soon have a defense system that can shoot those enemy missiles out of the skies. If Trump is right, and the Golden Dome is operational within 3 years, that leaves America's enemies with a dilemma. Attack now, so the Golden Dome is a non-factor, or hold back and wait to see if the US can deliver on its radical new aerial defense system. But what do you think about the Golden Dome? Do you believe the system will be up and running before the end of Trump's second presidential term, or does that deadline seem unrealistic to you? Is the Golden Dome going to be worth the hundreds of billions of dollars the US is going to invest in it? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below, and remember to subscribe to The Military Show for more videos focusing on the latest developments in the US military.